begin to lead others if you can't manage your own mind. Our brains are not the boss of us, so we have to learn to manage them effectively. And ultimately, if we're going to solve for the right problems, we need to manage our brains. So how do we do that? I'm going to teach you about a coaching tool that will help provide some insight and help you to do this day-to-day management. It's going to help you get to the root cause of issues and create changes in your life. It'll help you gain clarity into what's working and maybe what's not working. Because we have more control than we think. We can create any result we want. So I'm going to teach you the self-coaching model. This model was developed by Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School and is very similar to other models that are used by other self-improvement professionals such as Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan, and Brian Moran. So here's how the model works. There's 5 steps: circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. We're going to take them one by one, and then I'm going to teach you some tips for using the model effectively. So let's start with the first 2, circumstances and thoughts. Circumstances are facts that everyone would agree on. They are things that we could prove in the court of law. Our thoughts are how we give meaning to the circumstances. We can't change our circumstances, but we can change our thoughts. Often we confuse the two. We'll confuse our circumstances and thoughts and think our thoughts are the truth. Our thoughts are the circumstances of our lives. We report our thoughts like the news. So we'll say, it's really cold outside today. Perfect example of this one. My sister used to live here in Virginia and moved to Texas. She comes back, walks outside, and is like, oh my goodness, it's so cold outside. I walk out and I'm like, wait, no, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful 62 degrees out. To her, that's freezing, but she's reporting her thought like the news. So what's the difference? The difference is the circumstance would be that it's 62 degrees outside. It's something we could prove. It's a fact. It's data. The difference is the thought. The thought is it's cold or it's hot. We do this all the time in our lives. We'll say things like, you know what? My boss said this thing. She is just awful. And all of your friends might agree with you. They might believe that that is a circumstance. However, it's not. It is our thought. We believe that she's not very kind, that she shouldn't have said that. We have all these thoughts, and there's nothing wrong with our thoughts, but we need to be able to separate those from the circumstance. So in that case, what is the circumstance? Well, the circumstance would be the things that your boss said. Again, if we had a tape recorder, we could prove those things in the court of law. So it's important, again, separate your circumstances, the facts, from your thoughts. This is a really important aspect, differentiating those two when you start using the model. One way to know the difference is if you have an adjective. If you have an adjective, it's definitely a thought. So then we're going to move down to the third item, and that is feelings. And I can already hear you moaning. Why are we talking about emotions? This is a leadership video. Unfortunately or fortunately, as part of the human experience, feelings drive our actions and results. So when we talk about emotions, we're talking about vibrations in our body. We're talking about emotions. These are different than sensations like hot or cold or feeling hungry. These are emotions like excited or sad or focused, determined. Those are emotions. When we think our feelings come from our circumstances, we lose all the ability to change things. So again, we may think, well, my boss said this thing and she shouldn't have said it, and so now I'm angry. We've missed an important step in the middle, and that is our thoughts. We're going to talk about how you use those things in just a moment. But becoming really good at recognizing and naming your feelings in one word not only will allow you to use the model more effectively, but it'll allow you to see what's working, what's not working, and then to generate emotions that you want. One tip here is a lot of times people will use a sentence when I ask them how they're feeling. They'll say like, oh, I'm feeling really successful. That's great. But when you think I'm really successful, how does that make you feel? Maybe it's proud. Maybe it's excited. So again, when you use a sentence to describe your emotions, sit in that sentence for a second and describe the emotion that is behind it. So we've got our circumstance. We have our thoughts that help us give meaning to our circumstances. Our thoughts create feelings or emotions, and then our feelings drive our actions. Actions can be behaviors, reactions, sometimes inactions. When we sit and scroll on our phones or when we don't speak up, those inactions are just as important as the things we are doing. And those come from how we're feeling. Our actions, in turn, create our results, the things we have in our lives. Again, sometimes we miss that entire middle of the model and we think our results have come from our circumstances. Somebody says something, so of course we have this result. But there are all these steps in between. I don't want you to use this information against yourself. It's useful to use as a tool so you can see what's happening, so you can see where you're responsible and where you have the power to change things. So we're going to talk a little bit about some tips for using the model. When can you use the model? Well, you can use it as part of a journaling experience or a journaling practice. A lot of people will write models all day. We have what's called the intentional model and the unintentional model. So the unintentional model may be something that just happened to you earlier in the day or the day before. Someone said something, you had a thought about it, so you felt a certain way, you acted out of that emotion, and you got a certain result. One great example of this that I have heard over and over again is when someone starts a new role. A lot of times you may feel like you know nothing when you start that new role. And so you take your circumstance, whether it's someone speaking to you, whether it's someone not speaking to you, whether it's the number of emails in your inbox, and you could use that and have different thoughts. One is, I have no idea what these people want. When you think that, how do you feel? You've probably thought that before. Maybe you feel kind of defeated. When you feel defeated, what do? You back off. Maybe you don't engage with your new coworkers. Maybe you don't ask questions when there's an opportunity. And then what happens? Your result? You really don't know what's happening. You don't know what's going on. You don't get to know more about your role. So you see there, and that's a tip, your result often reflects your thought. So circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. Your result often comes right back to the thought. Let's take that same circumstance. Number of emails in your inbox, number of meetings that you have, number of people whose name you know. Instead of the original thought, maybe you have the thought of, my job right now is to learn and soak it up. How do you feel when you think that instead? Now, we're not jumping to sunshine and rainbows, right? That's not necessarily an exciting thought, but maybe it makes you feel focused. Maybe it makes you feel curious. What do you do when you feel those emotions? Maybe you start a list of all the different things that you have questions about. Maybe you make lunch dates with the people you don't know. Maybe you ask someone to introduce you. When you do have a meeting with your boss, you sit down and you take notes and you lean in. What's the result there? You start learning your role. Totally same circumstances, totally different result. The only change was what you thought about those circumstances. So again, if you use this as a journaling practice, you may see how you're acting, how you're feeling on the one side. That's your unintentional model. And you may decide that you want a different result. And so you map that out in an intentional model through your journaling practice. You can use the model when you feel stuck, frustrated, or confused. I used to do this all the time. I had a little Post-it note packet on my desk. And when I was feeling stuck, I'd be like, what's happening right now? Let me just jot down CTFAR, circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. What's happening right now? And then you better believe I ripped those suckers up and threw them in the trash. Here's the other great thing. You can also use this when you're feeling successful, productive, and amazing, because all of these thoughts and feelings that you have are replicable. So when you take a moment in those amazing times to write down that model, those aren't ones you want to throw away. Those are ones you want to stick in your notebook for later when maybe you are feeling stuck or you are reaching for an emotion and you're not sure what it is. Because again, we're not always reaching for exciting or motivated. Sometimes we're reaching for determined, focused, and clear. So knowing what emotions work for you in those good times can help you in the other times. So how do we use this model? Well, the first thing I want to say is how we don't use it. And we don't use it against ourselves. We don't use this to judge how we're feeling. We don't use it to tell ourselves that we're wrong or that we should have been better because our thoughts created that result that we now have. We use it as a tool to see what's happening and why. We can use it to create new results. Now, a few other tips. Watch for thoughts sneaking into the circumstance line. I mentioned that already, but it's worth repeating. If there's an adjective, it's a thought. The other tip that I have is sometimes we'll put questions in the thought line. What if I mess up? What if this doesn't go well? What if they say no? Answer your questions. Your brain is answering it back there. So make sure you put that thought into the T line. The last tip is only you can live in your result line. As much as we would love to create results for other people, we live in a human, messy world. And so if you want to impact other people, talk about the impact you want to have. Talk about the result you want to see, but don't let other people live in your result line. And lastly, I'm going to say it again, don't use the model against yourself. I hope that you found this helpful. Use this model, circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and result to gain insight and be the person that you want to be.